Mike Marlar was not happy with the invert system at the Dream at Eldora Speedway this past weekend. He shared his frustration in a post on Facebook, which has very mixed reactions. I wrote this up over at stockcarreport.com. You can find the link in the description below. I own and manage stockcarreport.com. But this is what he wrote on Facebook. Eldora Speedway, why bother working to get what you earn? Had to start fourth in a heat race I should have been on the pole of. Now we're fixing a wreck. There's plenty of good competition to see a good show without inverts. No need to penalize guys who work hard. He then added the hashtags, hashtag do better, hashtag inverts gotta go. So obviously not happy with the invert for the heat race there on the Friday night preliminary. So for context, Marlar qualified second in qualifying Group B with a lap of 15.509. Only Garrett Alberson beat him with a 15.296. Nevertheless, he was forced to start in fourth in Heat 4 and ended up finishing in fifth, claiming the last and final transfer spot. However, during that heat race, he banged off of Mark Whitener during a restart with 8 laps to go while racing for third. You can kind of see a little bit of that right there in that still that I took. Marlar would start 11th for the preliminary feature and eventually finished in 22nd. He finished preliminary competition in 35th based on Eldora's Every Lap Matters point system, where they basically rate your qualifying, your heat race finish, your B main finish if you're in a B main, your A main finish, etc. And they total all those points up, and you get total number of points. And then you're obviously ranked. Jonathan Davenport was number 1. He got to spin the wheel of misfortune to determine the invert for Saturday's heat races, etc. And he actually wasn't. He actually was not too happy about that either when he was actually spinning the wheel, when he was looking at it. But before we get to that, I sympathize with Marlar here. We see this throughout the racing year. It is extraordinarily difficult to pass, especially on a short heat race. Obviously, we did see some passing happening. Clearly, Marlar got passed from 4th to 5th. Usually, it happens immediately. It happens right on the restart. So if you don't get a good restart, you're likely going to be going backwards, and you're going to be the one getting passed. Obviously, starting on the front row helps to manage the restart, obviously, and mitigate chances that you are going to lose spots on the restart. So I definitely sympathize with him. I also kind of sympathize with the idea why you would do an invert, because you want to see make it a little bit more challenging. You want it to be extraordinarily difficult to make the dream. You want the best of the best to do that, and you want it to be a challenge. So I see that perspective as well. I probably lean on with Marlar here on this, though, at least on this case. I think that if you qualify fast, you should probably start on the pole and be rewarded with that, right? Obviously, people can play games with the qualifying speed, but that's going to be really difficult to do because there's so many people that are qualifying. You're usually dealing with like 40, potentially 50 cars sometimes on a single night of qualifying, at least for the last couple of years. So if you're going to try and play games like that, there's a big risk there. But yeah, I think that they probably should have rewarded him with that pole position in the heat, and then kind of just move forward like we traditionally see in like the World of Outlaws and in Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, and pretty much almost all of the Super Late Model Series that we see. If you qualify fast, you start on the front row, right? That's where you start. You're not inverting the heat races for a preliminary, right? So I get that. As far as the Davenport's comments, obviously when he got to the wheel of misfortune, he looked at it and he said, "Oh man, they took off the 1 and 2. What the heck?" Obviously, there was only options 3 through 6. There were no 1, there were no 2s, there were no 0s. There was no lower options other than 3, and it went as high as 6. And that was an invert for a heat race, right? Which is pretty difficult. I mean, Davenport started in 4th. He only finished in 3rd, only got that 1 position. And Bobby Pierce also, who finished 2nd in the Dream, he shared his thoughts on X, responding to this reporter, Connor Ferguson, saying, "I was surprised to see there wasn't a 1 or 2. So he was a little bit surprised too. And again, like I said, Davenport finished third in his Heat 1 after starting fourth, while Pierce finished second after starting fourth. So obviously, those guys did move forward, but they didn't move forward all that much, right? 2 spots for Pierce, 1 spot for Davenport, and that was with a 4-car invert. Can you imagine if it was a 6-car invert and Davenport's only moving up 1? He's not locking himself in. So that is a danger right there. If you're going to do an invert, I think I would rather see the invert with the main field, right? And we kind of saw this. I think it was with Mars, where you had the twins that they did, and then they inverted based on finishing order for the second twin. If you're obviously for a dream, I think you could potentially invert like the top 10, and it's a 100-lap race. So I don't think it's as damaging to these guys who are out there chasing it, right? So they're back to 10th, right? If you're the top point guy or whatever. You go back, you start 10th or whatever, and that's your invert, and then you have 100 laps to like work through the field, and you still get the racing that you want. So if they're going to do an invert, I think that's probably where I would like to see an invert. That's kind of my preference for that, unless you're doing something like a twin, where then you do the twin and then you obviously invert from the winner, and I think that works out really well. It makes it very interesting, and the asphalt world's been doing that for quite some time, and I think it is quite entertaining from a fan perspective. But yeah, I sympathize with Marlar here on this, because you do get caught back up in here, and you're beating and banging now instead of potentially just jetting off from that pole position, from that front row, right? And then that's not to say that you couldn't obviously still get beat and bang even from the front row, but I think there's just less risk of that happening. But let me know what you guys make of Mike Marlar's comments here on the invert process at Eldora Speedway for the Dream. Do you expect them to kind of make any changes for the World 100? What do you guys think they should do? What are your thoughts on the invert? Let me know in the comments below.